Hey and welcome to Ahead of the Curve. I am Jonathan Gelner and thank you for being here. This episode is brought to you by Baseball Cloud. Go to baseballcloud.com to find out how you can have your own data analytics department for your program. Data has a story to tell, and Baseball Cloud gives it a voice. In this episode, I get the opportunity to introduce several college baseball coaches and the man behind the mic at the ABCA, Jeremy Sheetinger. We start off with Randolph Macon head coach Ray Hedrick. Then we move to Jeremy Sheetinger, and then we have the entire staff at Paul D. Camp CC, which includes head coach David Mitchell, hitting coach Brandon Matthews, and pitching coach Pat Stafford. Ray, good morning.
Good morning. Happy December.
It is December. You are absolutely correct. It's crazy. We're getting closer and closer to the season every day, it feels like.
Yep. We're getting there. Just got a few more months to go.
Definitely. Well, talk to us a little bit about what we were just talking about a minute ago. And you mentioned that one of the biggest parts of your program is relationships. And I want you to share with the rest of the coaches that are here what you meant by that.
Well, I think, as coaches at any level, it's our job, first and foremost, to take our players from being dependent on their families when they leave home, when they leave high school, and getting them to that point where they're independent when they graduate. And we do that through the development in our program. And a lot of it is centered around baseball. Mm-hmm. A lot of it is centered around the teaching of the game and the certain situations that come up over the course of an academic calendar year. But in a program like ours, and I think a lot of programs, regardless of the level, it's more than what you do on the field per se. It's about, teaching them how to manage their time academically, how to make positive social choices, engaging them in a community. I know in a town like Ashland, in about 6 hours, I got to go play Santa.
That's awesome.
For a couple events there, and a couple of my players will be there to help.
Cool.
So just engaging in the community. And then, just the overall just experience of being a college student athlete, regardless of the SEC, ACC, or the ODAC, mm-hmm. and just the impact that has. So we put a lot of emphasis certainly on the baseball aspect of developing, but also the overall just impact we can have as coaches into their lives, mm-hmm. so that they can be successful husbands, successful fathers when they graduate, well beyond their years on our campus.
And have you noticed that the more you model that, the more they'll do that for you?
Well, and yes, and to answer your question, because that's the great thing. People always ask me, not that I am highly coveted by any stretch of the imagination at other schools, but when I have recruits on campus, it's always, well, you had success. Are you going to be here for an extended period of time? And you never say never, of course, about leaving, but I always talk to them about the balance that Randolph Macon provides, and mm-hmm. the balance that being a small college coach provides. We can compete at a very high level. We have an administration that allows us and supports us in competing at a high level, but not and sacrificing what's important in terms of being a good husband and being a good father. And I've raised my kids on that campus. My daughter's 12, my son's 7. They've been a part of the everyday life on that campus. Mm-hmm. And most recently, my son just being at practices, sometimes going on road trips with us, being a bat boy. And I think it's important for our student athletes to see me as a husband, as a father, and being engaged in my kids' lives. Maybe every so often I have to leave practice a little bit early because I have to get to my daughter's,
Sure.
games or events that she's a part of, or my son's for that matter. So I think showing that balance to our student athletes is an important part of their development that has really nothing to do with baseball.
Sure, I love that. And so talk to us about how you go about building leaders in your program. You mentioned that you are trying to be an example every single day. And you guys do some stuff in the community. Are there any other practical things that you guys do to try and build leaders, to get them to communicate better, or just to how do you make them better people?
Well, I think it's just a slow process. All right, everything we do is a process, and I think when it comes to developing leaders, you could debate, are leaders born or are leaders made? Mm-hmm. And I don't know that there's one right or one wrong either way in that debate. But I would say that we just spend an awful lot of time building relationships, and really deep relationships with our guys. It's not just, hey, I'm your baseball coach, mm-hmm. and I'll see you at the baseball field. We build relationships through academic progress, meeting with our student athletes who are either new to the program or are struggling to maintain positive time management over the course of the year. Mm-hmm. So we meet with them frequently about that. We have different leadership council things that we will do, from time to time, trying to develop, certain players within the program to really step up and take charge. anytime we have an opportunity to point out a positive example on a national stage or national level, we'll try to do that.
That's great.
I'm a big believer in, person to person, face to face contact. I was talking to one of my former players yesterday who is in his first year as a graduate assistant at another small school program. And he was talking to me about the frustrating aspect of recruiting, in that you recruit and you spend all this time and effort into students to try to get them to, to be interested in your school. And then when they decide to go in a different direction, 9 times out of 10, he's experienced so far, it's not a personal phone call, but it's an email or a text or a message in the office at the oddest hours.
Oh, wow.
Because, these students don't want to let people down and don't want to, have that person-to-person contact. And my response to him was, well, now you know why I don't accept text messages and why I expect you to reach out to either me or one of our assistant coaches, not to make your life more difficult, but to not allow you to hide behind a screen. You need to be able to have good interpersonal skills and be able to talk to people. And so, I don't know if I'm directly answering your question, but I think we just put a lot of emphasis in the day-to-day of just trying to teach them what it means to be a good leader, what it means to be a good husband, what it means to be a good father, just through what we do as coaches in our day-to-day life, but also, using other opportunities that we see on a regional or national level to say, hey, look, this is why this organization or this program was successful, because these people did this to prepare themselves for that level of success.
Well, I've got 2 things that I'm really taking away from that, but the first one is, what happens if, say, little Johnny is not feeling well? Does he send you a text, or does he have to call you? It's like, I literally cannot make it to practice today. I'm about to die.
Well, it's interesting that you asked that question, because I have a unique attendance policy for our guys, and I don't want to dive too deep into our expectations for our program. But in the fall semester, your GPA dictates your ability to be able to miss classes.
Okay.
And first-year students or anybody with below a 2.5, they've got no room for error when it comes to absences.
Okay.
But the more successful you are in the classroom, the more flexibility we allow. Just to, growing up is about making choices, right? And sometimes you make the wrong choice, and sometimes, more times, hopefully you make the right choice. But in the instance of classes, if you're going to miss a class, regardless of the circumstance, you need to let me know. And in that instance, yes, I may allow them to text me and say, Coach, I'm not feeling well, or, send me an email. I certainly expect them to correspond with their professors and let the professors know what's going on. But you'd be surprised, more times than not, they will call.
Yeah.
Because that's the culture we've created, and they will have conversations. And then people that I talk to in the industry, particularly, assistant coaches that come into my program or people that are new to my program, say, I'm just shocked that guys actually tell you when they're going to miss class. But that's, being honest. Life is about relationships, right? So we have to, have trust and accountability in relationships if we're going to flourish in those relationships. So that's what I tell my guys. You just got to trust me. And yeah, it may not be the right decision, or you may be in a tough spot, but you have to communicate with me so that I can help you work through those situations. So as it relates to missing class, it's just, hey, Coach, I missed class. And it may be a freshman who overslept. But I'd rather them be honest with me about it, so we can talk about why they overslept and what they're doing in their lives to cause them to manage their time poorly. Does that make sense?
No, that absolutely makes sense.
So, yeah, I think you caught me on that, though. Yes, I will allow them to text me if they have to miss a class, but more times than not, they call.
Right. Well, and the example that I'm going to give is, whenever I was in high school, we had a coach that did the same. Now, granted, texting wasn't what it is now, where literally everything is a text, but he would make us call him, and anytime that I wasn't on my deathbed, I wouldn't miss, because I hated having to make that phone call and leaving a voicemail, because I was like, I want it to make it sound like I'm sick, but I don't want him to think that I'm faking it. So then I'll just go to practice. Yeah. Like, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah. Well, but that's good. He made you, think
definitely
through your decisions, and it wasn't as easy as hiding behind a screen.
Sure.
It's very easy to hide behind a computer screen, a phone, and send your feelings or your thoughts or get out of something. But I think that's becoming too much of the norm now. So, as coaches, I think it's our responsibility, and as mentors and as leaders, trying to not just better the game of baseball, but make people better.
Sure.
I just think it's imperative that we try to teach good, positive, actions, and just, try to prepare our guys to have success well beyond their time in our programs.
Well, I've got another 2-part question, but my first one is, and this was the second part of my other one, so I'm just compounding upon it, apparently. But I want to know, is this something that that you've learned lately, or did you start your career with this mindset?
No, I didn't. And we're going to talk about it on the panel later on. But I was named the head coach at Randolph Macon, my alma mater, when I was 29. And clearly I, mentally was not prepared probably for that as much as I thought I was. And I went into that guns blazing, so to speak. I was going to reinvent the wheel. The program hadn't had success in close to 2 decades. And I was going to come in as a 29-year-old, and we were going to get to the conference tournament. We weren't only going to get there. We were going to win the conference tournament. We were going to do all these great things. I was hired in the fall of 2004. So there was no recruiting. I had what I had.
Sure.
So in those first couple of years, I was probably a little bit more abrasive than I should have been. I tried to do more than I probably needed to. And so like we expect our players to evolve, I've evolved. And we had success early in my career. We won a championship within the first 4 years. But the relationships with the players then wasn't what it is now. And we just celebrated our 2008 championship team back in the spring. And a lot of those guys came back, and I found that the conversations that I was having with those guys were more about what I could have done differently, or how I could have been a better coach or a better mentor or a better leader. So no, I have evolved, and I've realized that like anything in life, it's about relationships. And I was probably a little bit more aggressive, abrasive. Now, there are some funny stories that go with that they will tell you about me that we can all look back and laugh at. But no, I can readily admit that I was not as big into relationships early in my tenure at Randolph Macon. And really, I was more about, this is the way we do things, and this is the culture I expect, and there's no room for error. And I painted myself in a corner a lot with things. And it's just, I think that's just, we all evolve at some point in our lives. And that really was a wake up call for me, particularly in 2009, when we faced a lot of adversity off the field, and I didn't necessarily handle everything the way I should have. It really just kind of changed who I was and helped me, better engage into my players and make it more about them and less about me. And I think that, that coupled with some other factors has led to our more significant and consistent success over the last 5 years.
Fantastic. Well, that's where I was going to go next. And you said that you evolved as a coach. To be honest with you, I've interviewed almost 100 people, and it feels like the best ones are doing exactly what you're doing. Because whenever we're younger, we're almost the same age as the kids that we're trying to coach. And so there's that I don't want to be their friend thing. And then we realize, okay, well, I can get them to fight for me if I have a relationship with them, and they'll go above and beyond what I'm asking them to do. So have you seen a correlation between you getting closer with the guys and your on-field performance?
Yes, I think just making it less about me. Randolph Macon's my alma mater. Randolph Macon is a place that I want to be able to raise my family and compete for championships at the highest level. Randolph Macon is not a stepping stone for me. I'm not interested in moving on to bigger and brighter or greener pastures, so to speak. Now, if the right opportunity became available, sure, but it would have to be really the right opportunity. So I think I've taken that mindset and I've passed that on to my players. Look, I'm not here to build my resume. I'm not here, to have umpteen championships in the league or a couple regional appearances or maybe getting to the World Series a time or two so that I can elevate myself professionally. No, I'm here to develop you and to put the time and effort into you. And I do think that the players knowing that it's more about them and the coach is going to make the sacrifice for them and not so much for winning, I think has really taken our program to a whole nother level. I'm not saying I'm perfect with it, and there were times that I probably should handle things. I think all coaches can say that. But letting the players know that it's about them and their overall experience as student athletes through the academic piece, through the social aspect of things, just through the overall, everything that goes into the 4 years in college, and letting them know that that relationship to me with that individual player is paramount, regardless of their athletic ability, regardless of how they impact the box score on a day-to-day basis, that the individual relationships at the small college level are paramount. And I use that a lot in recruiting too. It's not a business at our level. We have no letter of intents, no grant and aids. There's no money amount based on individual players. So everybody's on a level playing field. Now, athletics, that athletic ability is going to be different for each player, but that doesn't play as much of a role. At least I try not to let it play as much of a role in our program. I make the relationship be the paramount piece.
Definitely. And you can really see your love being expressed for Randolph Macon. And so if there are any prospective parents that are listening, or any players that you may have maybe recruiting in a couple of years, why Randolph Macon?
Well, I think it's just when you're looking at colleges, it's three things. It's the academic piece, it's the demographic piece, and it's the athletic piece.
Sure.
And you'd like to think it would be in that order regardless of where you're looking. You're looking at an SEC, ACC school, or you're looking at an ODAC school. So why Randolph Macon? We have a strong academic reputation. Life's about relationships. It's about people who know people. Randolph Macon has all kinds of networking relationships, not just in Virginia, but throughout the Mid-Atlantic and really the entire country. There are people who know people who know people that are associated with Randolph Macon. Mm-hmm. Randolph Macon also teaches people how to manage their time, which I think are the two things you get out of college. It's relationships and time management, right? More than anything you learn in the classroom. Demographically, we're located in the center of the state. We're 2 hours from the mountains. We're 2 hours from the water and the beach. We're 2 hours from Washington, D.C. And I think our campus lends itself to people from all different backgrounds and personalities. And then athletically, I think we have a product in any sport. Just we have a great environment athletically. Our football team just got to the Sweet 16 for the NCAA playoffs. Our men's basketball team is 8-0 and nationally ranked. Our women's basketball team is nationally ranked. We've got tremendous lacrosse programs, soccer programs, softball programs. Last year, there were 2 programs in the country that were ranked in the top 5 nationally in baseball and softball. Mm-hmm. Randolph Macon and the University of Florida.
Nice.
Whoever would have thought that the Gators and the Yellow Jackets, or the Randolph Macon Yellow Jackets, would be in the same sentence.
There you go.
But in baseball and softball last year, our softball program and baseball program were ranked in the top 5 nationally, and as was Florida. So that's why Randolph Macon, because we can provide not just a great education. You're not sacrificing baseball to get a great education. You're not sacrificing your education to play great baseball. Mm-hmm. You're getting the best of both worlds, and you're doing it in an area that lends itself to, you like to hunt and fish? We got that.
Cool.
You like the city? We got that. Definitely. So we lend ourselves to a lot of different backgrounds and personalities.
I love that, and I love that. It sounds like you guys are very diverse, which is very, very cool, and you've got something for everyone. But if we decided to stop by your practice, you say you're in the spring and we wanted to come by and see how you guys practice, what would you hope that we saw?
Organization.
Okay.
Yeah, and just overall plan in place. I mean, we go out there and everybody knows where they need to be. Organization and energy. Because we're always doing something, we're always moving, we don't stand around. There's always intent to what we do. So I think, a lot of people would be shocked when they come out and watch our practice. It would be no different than going and watching Brian O'Connor's practice at UVA or Sean Stifler's practice at VCU. And, we run our program like a Division I program. Unfortunately, we just have a 3 as our label.
Sure.
But organization, intent, and energy, I think, is what people would see.
I love it. And so if you would leave us with one thing, I'm just going to open up the mic for you. Is there anything that you want to tell these guys or anything that you want to tell our listeners before you go?
I think it would be just take care of your players. Pay attention to how you treat them. I'm a big believer in treating others the way I'd want to be treated. Now I'm a dad, and so I'm very mindful because I'm on the outside looking in with my kids and their activities. So I try to be even more mindful when it comes to, hey, if this was my child, and that's what I talk to the parents a lot about in the recruiting process. So I think as coaches, we need to make it less about us and more about our players. So that would be the advice that I would lend to anybody here who, wanted my advice, was just to make it about your players, not about yourself, and take care of your players, because those relationships are going to last long beyond any championships that you win while they're in your program. I mean, being invited to weddings, getting birth announcements, that's to me, that's the definition of success. So I would just tell people, just take care of their players, build on those relationships, because those are going to last far longer than any championships you may win.
Awesome. Well, you got me fired up early in the morning, so I appreciate your time, Ray, and thanks for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Sheets.
What's up?
Good morning.
Good morning to you.
Happy December.
Yes. Thanks for having me on.
Definitely. Well, you just came off the stage, so you're a hot commodity right now.
I was waiting for the James Brown effect. Somebody put the cape around me and towel me down. No Gatorade, no home run derby, nothing.
Somebody on Twitter earlier was asking what your intro song was, and you said it was a good day by Ice Cube. Yeah. I may have mentioned it was Mo Bamba. So
I can get down with that.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I'm not scared of it.
That's one of the songs that you play now, and everybody taps their feet. So.
Sure, no doubt.
But for our listeners who, at least on the podcast, for all the guys that were in there, and I want to preface this by saying I was doing a podcast right before this, and then I got the chance to catch the tail end of it. Every single person that was in there was locked in. Like, nobody was looking on their phones, and I feel guilty of that sometimes as well. Whenever somebody's presenting, I usually check my phone. I was looking around. Every single person was all eyes on you. So tell us a little bit about what you talked about, and maybe behind that, the why.
Yeah. Well, I told them to stay off your phones. I told them I'd take their phones from them.
Nice.
No, it's I think when you look at the opportunity to talk with coaches, and that's something that certainly as I've morphed out of being a coach and now being in the role that I am, especially 4 years later, it's just recognizing who we represent as an association. And so if we have the opportunity, whether it's through the podcast or through a Barnstormers clinic or at our national convention or an opportunity like this to challenge their hearts a little bit and get outside of infield play and catching and pitching, all that, and get into thinking differently about our relationship with the word impact. And that's something that I'm working through personally every day is what does that really mean and how far can that go? And then when you really break down, the mission of the talk was to think about our opportunity impact, but then ask very simple questions: who, what, when, where, why, and how. And when you walk down that list, you start to see that it's much greater than who, my players. Why aren't we thinking impact everyone we come in contact with? When, not just at the ballpark, how about wherever and whenever?
Sure.
You know, not just defining our why, but defining our how, because that's the action items that lead us towards really propelling our why forward.
For sure.
So yeah, just trying to answer those questions a little bit, and you know, getting vulnerable with them and telling them some stories and telling my history as a coach, and it's good.
Well, and the interesting part is, and I think this is the sign of a good coach, and you being a former coach, you said that at the very first of your career, you weren't in it for the relationship game.
No.
And every single person that I've had up here, and whether it's Division I down to very successful high school coaches, every one of them has said that exact same thing. At the very first of my career, this is how I went about my business. But now I don't, because there's a better way to do that. And I loved hearing that from you, and I love the vulnerability behind that. But I think if we look inside and we say, we all did this at one time, I think. Is that something that you've seen as well?
Yeah, and I always, when I start breaking that down, you know, we're our own worst critic. And a couple of guys that I've coached said, "Coach, I think you're too hard on yourself," and probably so. But at the same time, I think as a coach, it's one thing to look back and recognize that I wasn't in it for the right reasons. It's another to really peel back the hood on that thing and go a couple layers deeper and go, no, what was really at my heart? Because you know that answer, and only you do, and only I do. And when I've gotten down there, I was scared at what I found, which was that my ego was 100% completely out of control, and leading myself at the ballpark each day, I was putting players and their needs and wants and development and growth, I was putting it off to the side, and it was facilitating me and propelling my career. And so when you can really, no different right now, be that vulnerable and say, man, that's who I was. I wasn't a monster, but I wasn't great, and I'm embarrassed because of it. So then now I have the opportunity to move forward, be different, but also challenge you to think differently and challenge you to get to your core and find that answer.
Definitely, and you know, there's so many different ways that we could go from here, but is it just something that we as like you mentioned, we have to our five whys, and you know, you having kids, they are always asking why, and we need to do that for ourselves too. We need to find, okay, what am I really in this for? Am I in it to make an impact? And if I'm not, then that's another question that we need to answer. But for the coaches listening that are afraid of having a relationship and being soft, like I think that it's the complete opposite. Because if you have a relationship with your players, they're going to go to battle for you. Like, it's not a bro hug type moment. It's a, hey, I will go to fight for this guy.
Well, that's a great point. And when you really break it down, you're never going to have that relationship if you don't have trust. And I think that's the part that a coach walks into any team meeting, first team meeting. Well, I'm your coach, so we already have that established relationship. A relationship doesn't start getting formed until they know who you really are, and they trust you with that. Conversations when the office door is closed only happen when they trust each other. And when you look back at, and most coaches, if they're listening to this, do players come to your office? Do they grab you off the field? If they're not doing that, they don't trust you. And if they do, I think they're more apt to find you or seek out those opportunities to connect. But back to your question, I think as you look at how that is viewed, it's really personality based. You're still going to coach the way you coach, But if you have trust and then you have a real relationship, then they understand who you are.
Yeah.
So now it's all gets compounded positively as opposed to working, from the front to back, work from the back to the front and build it from the ground up. So then you get to a place where they get to see you at your best. And you're okay with that, certainly, but they also get to see you at your worst when you screw up, when you made a bad mistake, when you didn't handle failure the right way.
That's right.
Then they get to see you on that level, but you're okay with it.
Sure.
It's not about being soft. It's about being vulnerable.
Right.
That's tough. I told them, man, it's a group full of men, and I'm saying let's be vulnerable.
Yeah.
So I didn't know if they were going to maybe I was going to bring out a couch and we were all going to lay down and talk, but it was just the opportunity to really talk a little more deeply on stuff.
No, I love that, and you mentioned that once we have those moments that we do those things, it's okay to say, man, I lost. I'm sorry, guys. Yesterday,
it's all
not
me.
a good day.
It's on me.
And I think that you're going to gain more respect for that because the kids know you did anyways.
100%.
And if you don't come back and do that, they're just going to be like, really, you think that's okay, but you're holding us to a higher standard than that?
How about, in game, no doubt. I screwed up here. I made the wrong call here. I really felt like this was going to happen. That's why I called a hit and run. They pitched out. That's on me, guys. That's overthinking the game. But I think that's where coaches, their accountability stops, as opposed to, like you just mentioned, who was out at practice yesterday?
Right, definitely.
Guys, if you notice, man, I had a little something going on. I had something at home. I brought it with me to practice. Yeah. I preached to you guys about not doing that. Don't bring schoolwork or your girlfriend.
Yeah.
I failed there. Or how about this is completely off the subject. You never would have known if I didn't say it, but I failed here. And here's just a learning opportunity for myself and for all of us that this is where I fell short, and let's break it down. Let me help you. Let me be your experience. Don't do that ever again.
Right.
There's just so much more to it. But again, it's how personality based. But I mean, how deep do you want this thing to go? And that's where, again, as we walk down the questions, is it's much greater than just my players and our relationship right now. It's how am I really impacting you right now, even this interview? How am I impacting you last night at dinner? How am I impacting you throughout our relationship?
Right.
I need to be better in that area. I need to think differently and really work to impact differently. And that's just what we're trying to charge these guys with.
Well, one thing about you, Sheets, is I think that everybody that comes into contact with you comes away feeling better about themselves. I think you're a master relationship builder in an instant. So for our listeners out there who really want to step out of their comfort zone and do more things like that, because as well as I do, building relationships and being able to have relationships across the country opens up a ton of doors. One, for information, and you're like, hey, Sheets, what are you doing here or here? And that's going to help us. But also, maybe down the line, if they need an assistant coach or something like that. So how do you make those connections early, often, and tell me how you go about that.
Well, it's probably a couple-sided. I grew up in the household of a professional speaker, so
that's right.
You're going to talk. If you've ever taken a Gallup Strength Finder test, my number one trait is woo, which is winning others over.
Woo, all right.
Which is pretty cool. And now that I had a definition to it, it made a lot of sense. It's like a stranger on the street is a friend I haven't met yet.
Oh yeah,
and so that's I am charged with that. I was telling a story yesterday that we took Cooper to go get shots, and we walk into the lab. And the lady wanted nothing to do with the conversation. And I'm trying to pick at her and, hey, how's your day been? And, hey, so you guys been busy here? And I'm trying to pick at her, and she wants nothing to do with me. And I look at my wife, and she goes, just stop. And I go, well, there's an entry point somewhere.
Right.
And the moral of the story is I kept working on her. I made her laugh once. I made her laugh again. By the end of it, she was wishing us Merry Christmas and loving us on the way out the door.
Yeah,
and it's that challenge of, trying to get people on your team. But I think more to what you're asking is that's just, I think that's being a good person. When you really want to engage with someone, treat them like they're the only person in the room. Treat them like their information is the only information. And that's tough to do. You see me at convention. We got a lot of conversations, a lot of handshakes, but for however many coaches I get to come in contact with, I want to make sure that they feel like, dude, I gave you 10 minutes. I gave you everything I had right there. I wasn't thinking about my next meeting. Right. But that's how we want to be treated. So I think it's all the same reciprocity in any relationship is, I want to make sure I do that for you. I respect and admire if you do that to me. And it's the same thing, but I think at its core, it's not much more than just being a good dude. And, hopefully I'm a good dude. I'm working on that every day.
Sure.
But I really am. That's one compliment I love that comes across, because it's something I don't maybe I probably take for granted, but it's one that I realize I respect in other people.
Mm-hmm.
And so maybe that's one of those modeling that I really want to exhibit that for other people as well.
Well, just, from the outside looking in, I'll tell you, you're very authentic.
Yeah.
You listen to understand and not to speak over someone. And I think that, that's something that
wasn't always the case.
No, and that's something that I'm trying to constantly work on as well, because, being a podcaster, we're trying to decide what we want to ask next or what we should say next without being, having that dead time.
Yep.
And that's something that I'm trying to, and instead of thinking about what I'm doing next, how can I listen to them and then maybe formulate a question that goes along with that? And I really like that you do that really well, because you can definitely tell there's always eye contact. You always feel like that's the only person in the room, and I really respect that. But I want to leave with this.
Sure.
And we've got some listeners that are probably 22 years old, same age as their players.
Yep.
Maybe they are a GA at the school that they were just at, which is really tough.
No doubt.
And you still, they hear this relationship piece, but they're like, Sheets, I don't want them to think I'm their friend. Mm-hmm. What's the fine line?
Let's understand that the toughest job in baseball is coaching at the place you just got done playing.
Oh, I bet.
That is the toughest. It's not the one that you're not getting paid, and it's not the one. It's the one where you're coaching the kids you just spent time with in the dugout, in the locker room, at the club, in the dorm, the whole thing. That relationship's much different. For those guys, I think the piece that you should find is that just be yourself. Mm-hmm. I think sometimes when they put the other hat on, now it's coach mode and call me coach, and I'm Coach Jonathan, not Jonathan that we hung out with. And it's not the case at all. You have to earn that. It's no different than we talked about relationships. You have to go earn that from them. Mm-hmm. So they trusted you as a friend, but they got to trust you now as a coach. Now it's rebuilding. So I think starting with that in mind is that I need to show them, not convince them, show them that I'm here for them. I'm here for the right reasons. Be available, but be yourself. Don't talk differently. Don't posture differently. Just be who you are. Be authentic.
Sure.
And there's guys that are going to accept you, and there's guys that won't. But it's like I talked about on Joe. I was texting with Joe a little bit earlier. Joe Ferraro, both of our good friend and probably mentor in a lot of ways, is the law of 25%.
Yeah.
And if you trust that, can I give this to your guys?
Go ahead.
The laws of 25%. I want you to hear this as well. So 25% of the people you meet in life will love you from the start, and they will always love you no matter who you are or what you do. 25% of the people you meet in life will love you from the start, but can be convinced by your actions or something you say to not be on your team. Mm-hmm. 25% of the people you meet in life will not like you at the start, but through your work, through your actions, through the relationship, they start to come over to your team. And 25% of the people you meet in life will not like you from the start and will never like you no matter what you say or do. And the minute that I understood that and embraced it, as opposed to trying to please everyone, be who you are, be authentic, treat them the way you want to be treated. This is all books out of the, or lessons out of the good book. Mm-hmm. But when you start to lay those out, that's where it all falls into place, and you just live peacefully with it. So as the young GA or the young coach, be who you are. Be who you are. Don't think any differently. Don't do anything differently, but be there for the guys. And I think the minute that they see that you're there's a lot of dudes out there, we both follow them on Twitter, that are just there for the players, and it's all development driven, and it's all what else can I do, and promoting them on social media and videos. And when they start to see that, I think they see that you've turned a corner and you're different than the guy they used to hang out at the club with. You're a lot different in that regard. But that to me is the easy first step for any coach, but especially those in particular you asked about.
I love it. Well, Sheets, thank you for joining us today. I really appreciate your time.
Thanks, JG. Appreciate it, brother.
All right, Paul D. Campstaff. How are we?
Doing well. Thank you for having us.
You guys were all mentioning how tired you were. We're just getting started.
Yeah, we are.
Well, I've got you guys for 10 minutes, and we're going to start hot and heavy. And I want to hear a little bit about your program, but I also want to hear how you guys are taking a role in shaping their lives by being really good player developers. And David, if you want to start, and we'll just walk down the line from head coach to hitting coach and pitching coach, and we'll go from there.
Sure. David Mitchell, head coach at Paul D. Camp Community College, Franklin, Virginia, also athletic director.
Brandon Matthews, hitting coach and infield coach.
And I'm Pat Stafford, the pitching coach for Paul D. Camp.
Well, cool. Go ahead and start with, as a head coach, what's your role?
Sure. We're all three really excited about what we've got going on currently in Franklin, Virginia. We're a 15-month-old program. We're just in our second fall. We've seen a lot of growth over the last 15 months. From starting a program from the ground up, there are a lot of challenges.
Oh, I'm sure.
In addition to just recruiting, we also had a brand new complex we were building, a turf developmental area that was under construction. So we had a lot of things going on over the last 15 months. And really this fall has been our first year that we've kind of been able to just sit back and reap all the benefits of having an on-campus facility, which leads into our player development. There's only 3 public junior college programs in the state of Virginia, and we're one of them. And what we 3 have seen is, especially in our area, in the Hampton Roads, Tidewater area, is there's a need for a school like us for the student athletes that from an athletic or physical ability-wise, they may be just short of going to a Division I school, or academically maybe not quite there to get into a Division I school or a Division III school. And then the financial piece. We're very affordable. Our tuition's only $4,000 a year in state. So we saw an opportunity for student athletes in the state of Virginia and locally in the Hampton Roads, Tidewater region to stay close to home and develop physically, athletically, to be able to save money financially, to where they can come to us for 1 or 2 years. We can develop them and then move them on to a Division I school, whether it's in state or out of state, and just help them prepare and get a little bit better. So I'm going to let Brandon and Pat talk a little bit about what we do from a hitting aspect and pitching aspect as far as development.
Cool. Brandon?
So one thing that David mentioned on was, the opportunity for student athletes in our area that they've really never had before. And with that being said, we pride ourselves on giving them opportunities to become, the best baseball player, the best student athlete that they can be, and make that ceiling, whatever they want it to be, whether their dream school might be XYZ, but, they don't have that offer that they want yet. We give them that opportunity to come in. And from a hitting standpoint, we pride ourselves on, using the latest player development methods. We do a lot of stuff that was talked about at Wake Forest, things that Baseball Rebellion teaches when they were working with Tom Eller at Harford Community College. So we're doing, we're bringing in Rapsodo machines in the future. We're going to bring in spin ball pitching machines. We want to train our guys in an environment that's going to maximize their ability that they have now, but at the same time challenge them for those D1 level type pitching that they're going to see in the future, using weighted bats, blast motion, diamond kinetics, tracking data, offensive production measurements just posted weekly, a lot of competitions. So if you're a position player and you're looking for a place where you can grow and become, the best position player you can be and the best hitter you can be, you definitely need to come check us out at Paul D. Camp. Tuition's affordable, like Coach Mitchell said, and we're a growing mindset, forward-thinking coaching staff where, I don't know everything and I'm learning every day to try to become a better hitting coach. So I want my players to benefit from, everything that we have to offer, and not just, mold every guy into a cookie cutter type system situation. So we pride ourselves in doing that from the hitting side of things, and using different competitions, things that you mentioned in your presentation today that were, very valuable from a constraints-led approach. So if these guys are following, programs, the driveline hitting, the axe bats, the weighted bat programs, that's one thing we pride ourselves on, is trying to stay up to date on the latest ways to develop, players on the hitting side. And we think we can do a good job of that. And we look forward to seeing this program grow with this coming recruiting class that we put together. And then the one that's going to come after that, we think we're going in the right direction.
Fantastic. And on the pitching side?
Yeah, absolutely. From the pitching side, one of the things that really drew me to this job when Coach Mitchell accepted the position was that the fact that, like he was talking about, junior college baseball is kind of unique in the state of Virginia to an extent, where North Carolina, South Carolina, Maryland has really taken the reins on that quite a bit and been able to really develop a lot of guys and give them an opportunity to develop an extra 2 years, to where, and not knocking a 4-year school whatsoever, but with us, the ability to come in and play as a freshman and sophomore, to where you can really take a lot of freshmen that are not quite developed as a junior or a senior that's 81 to 82, 83 on the mound, and they can come in and actually get innings and play right away and really develop. And that's what a lot of guys we feel need. I was a junior college player myself, and it was very beneficial for me during my playing days to actually get out there and have at bats and see innings and time. One player that we're very proud of that started with us for the first year, a left-handed pitcher of us, came in as a 175 pound, 6'1" guy, and he's leaving us going to a really strong powerhouse Division II school in the university as a 6'3", 220 pound kid with a 7-mile-an-hour velo jump within a matter of a year and a half. Without the opportunity of a junior college baseball program, he may have not had that development to get into that. So that's one thing that really excites me about being in this program and having the junior college baseball aspect in the state of Virginia. Is we're giving guys another opportunity, like Coach said, academically to get where they need to be financially. Not only that, just to develop as a player by getting more playing time.
Fantastic. Well, before you go, why don't you just go ahead and leave our audience and our podcast, listeners of just a little bit of advice and, just anything that we can take home with us.
Sure, yeah. And one thing that I want to end on is, last night we talked a lot about brand and what we would be known for at Paul D. Camp. Brandon's talked about the hitting and Pat's talked about pitching development. I think one thing that is starting to get out in the Hampton Roads community is that not only are we developing our players athletically, we're developing the entire person. We do Mental Mondays. We bring in different speakers every Monday that share with our student athletes that help them grow off the field. We've participated in many community outreach programs. We had a turkey trot right before Thanksgiving. We brought in over 200 canned goods that we donated to the food bank. So we're doing a lot of things, not just to develop them, academically and athletically, but to develop the entire person. And, I think as that brand grows, more people are going to be drawn to us because we care about these kids. It's about them. It's not about us. And, this year we've got 18 sophomores and 17 are on track to graduate on time. We're expecting about 12 to 13 to go play D1, D2, D3. But what about the other 5 or 6?
Right.
We want them to leave being better people than they were when they came to us. We want them to be great fathers, husbands, sons, etc. So that's something we take a lot of pride in. And, again, we're young, we're new, we're excited, we're driven, and we just look forward to the growth we know we're going to have.
Well, fantastic. Thank you guys for coming out, and appreciate the advice.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you for listening to Ahead of the Curve. Before you go, I'd love to be able to get in touch with you, and we have several different ways of doing so. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at AOTC_podcast. You can join the AOTC Coaches Facebook group, and if you want to be a part of the mini clinic emails, both of those links are listed below. If you enjoyed the show, please consider leaving us a rating or review to help others find and stay ahead of the curve.